it also meant like, crap, I have to kind of rediscover things. And what I learned in that process, whether it's right or wrong or healthy or not, that, I think CSS-Tricks, I made it too big a part of my life. I really, really cared about that site a lot. And it was, the thing that I woke up to do in the morning. It got me out of bed. And I put a little too many emotional eggs in that one basket, and so having it pulled away from me and having loved it, yeah, I was very resentful, and I had to go through several stages of grief, to deal with this, and because it's partly my livelihood, it's partly a passion project, it's my hobby, it's my well-being, it's how I provide for my family, it's all these things, and like it's too interconnected into all areas of my life, and so losing that just really felt like I was losing a big part of myself, as silly as that might sound.
Welcome to part two of our conversation with Geoff. While listening to part one is not a prerequisite, we do highly recommend it, and you can find it in the same place where you are listening to this episode. We hope that what we discuss will resonate with you and leave you with some food for thought. Without any further ado, let's join the conversation that is already underway.
I yeah, I resonate with that a ton. I have the same thing, and it tends to creep up on me where I'm like, just like, I don't realize it, and then one day I'm just like, shit, man, I really hate myself. It just like dawns on me. I'm like, what? When did this happen? Like, how did I get into this? Like, and I'm like, shit, man, I really just. I'm disgusted with myself, but like, yeah, I also see it as kind of an aberration. Like I kind of see it as like, this is not normal. This is just like some weird thing I have to manage. I like so I listen quite a bit to Paul Gilmartin. What's it? Mental illness happy hour, which is great, and he also like I think at several occasions have said like, the thing is, you can't think yourself out of the thinking problem. Like, the problem is your way of thinking. You can't think yourself. The more you try and think yourself, the problem is with the thinking. So you're just making it worse. It's that classic thing of like, whatever you do now, don't think about a pink elephant. Whatever you do, like, it's that dynamic. Like, you can't think yourself out of thinking. And like the way because I've struggled in the past with things around kind of like body dysmorphia and stuff. And the way I've always described it to people, because people's immediate response would be, no, your face isn't skew. Like, your face is fine. Like, it's like, I know that, but I can't stop thinking it's not. And I think like it's such a weird thing to explain to someone, that you have this dissonance, that you rationally realize something, but you're reacting as if. And I think the thing I've always fell back on is using something like bungee jumping. Like, it's like, no matter how convinced you are you're not physically gonna die, that doesn't change anything. It's like almost your body is responding as if you're gonna die, regardless of what you rationally think. So like, the answer isn't to be like, dude, why are you acting this way? You're not gonna die, right? Like, why? Look at this guy. Like, he's about to bungee jump and he's like really scared. Like, does he think he's going to die? Like, what the hell, dude? You're not going to die. Why are you scared? It's like, almost like, it's not that clear cut always. It's like it's almost like there's this physiological response that's removed from your rational cognitive brain. But I think like one thing I really resonate with Russ, one of the previous guests we've had, is he said he has the same thing, and he can't imagine himself ever going like, loving himself, being like, you know what, like standing in front of the mirror and being like, you know what, dude, I love you. I love you. Like, he said, like, if he tries to do this, he would immediately go like, you're so full of shit, man. Like,
Yep.
cut this
That
out.
sounds right.
Yeah, and I'm the exact same. So, but I think like what he said, what's helped for him is to be like, you know what, like to think about yourself as, I can live with this guy. He's not perfect. He's kind of annoying, does stupid stuff, like forget to get the pencil and whatever, like that's kind of annoying. Actually, it's really annoying, but I can live with him. He's okay, could be a lot worse. It's average at best, It's fine. Like I can live with this guy. I'm stuck
Absolutely.
with him. I can live with him. So that I've really resonated with that because I think that's also like a dynamic that I sometimes have with other people in my life where I'm like, yeah, they're not perfect. Like, you know, they kind of grind my gears, but it's fine. Like
That's
I can work
called
with them.
marriage, right? Like,
Hey. Lindy, if you're listening to this, I love you and you're perfect. Okay.
I was thinking about it from my wife's perspective, really.
Oh yes. Geez. I just incriminated myself so hard. Schalk, you know what to do in the editing process. At the conference,
touch me up too.
At a conference, like I once made a joke. So like you were like I'm gonna try and keep it concise so we can move on. But like so, I'm from Belleville, which is the northern suburb in Cape Town, and it's kind of like the joke is it's kind of like what would be like what would be a reference point for something like Zeph that Geoff would understand? Like I don't know, like almost low class. Let's say like low class. Yeah. Almost like the way you would think about a hillbilly or something, but more like urban.
Sure.
And like the joke is always because the number plate is CY, so it's always like come to Belleville and CY. But my wife is from an area called Strand, which is also kind of like has a bit of that element, and the number plate is CEY, and I always used to joke and I say like, yeah, it's Belleville, come to Belleville and CY, but it's go to Strand and see exactly why. and I made that joke at a conference once that was recorded, and to this day, man, have I regretted that. So yeah, Lindy, if you're listening to this, I love you so much, and Strand is amazing. But yeah, okay.
Sorry
so,
to make you insert
Jeez,
foot in mouth there.
Yeah, no, you like you guys aren't helping at all. But so like so we're kind of over the 1 hour mark now, so we should probably aim for like an hour and a half or something. So one thing that I would really like to touch on, like two things, is I'm so curious about like kind of your experience with like kind of Smashing Magazine and like kind of AI and ChatGPT and kind of like what's like how is that playing out, and then the other thing is if you're comfortable like just leaning a bit into kind of like the whole like what happened with CSS-Tricks and kind of like how that affected your mental health and so forth, and I'll leave it up to you to be as concrete or as vague as you want. Sure. But yeah, like so I think this is effectively just my way of telling other Schalk that, dude, if you want to ask something, you better do it now, because I think once we open up these cans, like there's no going back. Yeah.
Well,
all right, let's do it. Let's do it. Hang on to your butts. Right. Let's go. Yeah. So like, how much ChatGPT content do you get, either as submissions or as people who did a submission that sounded really cool, and then they actually start writing the article, and it's like clearly just ChatGPT? How bad is it?
Bad. Yeah, that's the answer. No. Actually, it's not as bad as you would think. There is a certain profile of submission that comes in where you kind of can screen it in advance and go, okay, I know where this is kind of going. And you get some sort of frequent flyers that submit lots of articles, and you see those names again. You go, okay, I know you're the AI person. Okay, gotcha. But it's pretty easy to sniff those out, at least for me, because they don't sound human. I mean, for someone who's, studied content and been engulfed in content for, way too long. It's way too easy to, to tell when there isn't personal experience in writing, because let's face it, a machine is never going to be able to imbue like human experience in its voice and tone. At least I don't think so. Because I mean, human experiences are lived, right? And then how does AI learn lived experiences? I don't know. I mean, we barely understand our lived experiences and have to process them. So how's AI going to do that? What AI is great for is, synthesizing data, summarizing. Like, hey, I love it when like Amazon at the top of a reviews list, is like of like comments. It's like, hey, AI generated summary of what people think about this. Great, because that saves me reading 50 different comments.
Yeah.
Although it's not fully accurate, but it's good to to like get that context up front and then maybe scan the comments. But as far as like AI generation, that's just not there, and yet folks are treating it like it is. And so yes, I do see proposals that are clearly written by AI. And like you, I teach or have you taught. I teach college courses now on web development, and yes, you do see folks who are going to just type in a question into ChatGPT or some other Copilot or something and try to spit out something. And it's I can tell because those things aren't addressing the actual question that I'm asking or the point of whatever assignment that I'm doing. It's just tangentially hitting on it, going like, that's technically right conceptually, but your details are like missing. So to me, there's always like a lack of something in AI output that tells me that I should look at it a little further. And then, yeah, I'll do some of my own prompts, in ChatGPT and be like, can I get this to say exactly what is in the author's draft? And I've done it, and it's like, hey, so-and-so, love your idea. It's so great. But hey, heads up, I can't run this. It's written by AI, and that's an instant disqualifier. Just to confirm, I ran this prompt in, and let's compare these two paragraphs. I said, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to pass. Just being blunt about it, and just calling a spade is the way to do it, because they know, that what they did, isn't their original work. And like nothing I say can make them feel worse about themselves, because they're the ones who are doing it, and that's fine. I'm not there to make people feel worse. I'm just there to say, hey, I can't take this. So that's been a thing. But it really started off last year when I started to see it come in. I don't see it nearly as much now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if if the stiff arm pushback I've been given, people are like, oh yeah, these guys don't take AI, crap. Maybe, I don't know. But yes, you do see AI in this field a lot, and of course, being technologists, or as many technologists that are in this field, who isn't going to be an early adopter of that sort of thing. I tend to be a laggard when it comes to new stuff. I like to watch people fuss with the betas and the bugs and all that. And then be like, all right, that seems like something I could adopt. But, especially when like something is going to promise to do magical work for you, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this right now. And now like every product seems to have, some sparkle icon on it that says AI. And, yeah, so it's kind of hard to escape right now, as far as, like, are you even interacting with AI? Who knows? Like, are we interacting on it right now with this platform that we're on? Who knows? Sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes it's marketing smoke and mirrors. It's something that like we still as humans have to decipher and to audit, with, again, our human brains. And so it's kind of hard to make sure that we're recognizing the humanness in something. That's something I never thought I would have to worry about in writing, like your humanness. It used to be, if someone writes dry and cold, it's just because they have a very engineering type brain, and all we have to do is just change the narrative a little bit, just a few grammar tweaks. Now it's, oh gosh, this is all just auto-generated output and has no blood or lifeblood in it whatsoever. So trash. Yeah, it's a really complicated thing, but I'm glad to see less and less of it as we go on. But then again, who knows? It could just get more and more sophisticated, and then before you know it, maybe my job's gone at some point. Who knows? No one wants the like handcrafted wordsmith thing. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. I'm not convinced, but I'm not convinced. Like I think we're very close to a plateau in terms of the capabilities of AI. I think even if you just look at the what's it, the VO or whatever thing that GPT released, OpenAI released recently, it's not that much of a difference between 4 when you compare the difference between 3.5 and 4. So I think we're very close to diminishing returns. So the reason I'm asking is because I do a bit of guest reviewing for a couple of conferences and stuff, for submissions and stuff, and you're like, there was a massive spike, and I think that was we'll see this year again as the submissions open again, but. It might very well just be that I think we've just gotten better at our brains have gotten better at just like seeing the like little hints. I find it to be the case of like Midjourney or whatever, like I think in the early days you'd be like, wow, like Midjourney can basically do anything, and I think now like I can almost without fault say when something has a Midjourney feel to it, because you actually realize it has a very narrow scope of the type of art it can actually do,
Exactly.
or the type of visuals it can create. It's and I find the same with ChatGPT as well. I think we've just gotten better at being like, yeah, this is kind of like exactly the type of, and I think the thing I've kind of seen is very bullet points. Yes, ChatGPT loves bullet points.
Oh yeah.
And man, is it like overly diplomatic?
Oh gosh, yes.
You can ask it like you can literally be like, is it better to use Flexbox or tables to create CSS? And it'll probably tell you something along the lines of, while it is generally a good idea to use Flexbox, you should be considerate of all the use cases and where tables might be a good option. It's just like so overly diplomatic to not say anything like either way. Okay, so that's super interesting. Then I want to dive into the CSS-Tricks stuff.
I have one more, if we could. Sorry.
Yes.
I think
Go for
I think
it. Yes.
The only question I have around that is not so much you getting submissions for that. It's what do you think is going to be the impact on sites like Smashing Magazine and, I mean, personal websites, everything essentially, with the changes coming to Google and as a result, every other search engine after that, in that people will search and it'll give them a little summary. And then sure, there's links and stuff, but as we know, because of platforms such as Instagram Reels, TikTok, people's attention span is very, very short. So how many people are really going to click on those links when there is a supposed really good summary at the top? Do you think that is going to have a bigger impact on sites like Smashing Magazine and those kinds of things? MDN, for that matter, I know that was a concern over there when I was there. Yeah. So I would like to hear what you think about that.
Well, I don't think it will have no impact on them. It has to have something. I would imagine, because as we're changing the whole idea of what search looks like, and pretty much turning it on its head, right? And instead of putting the onus on the human, to scour those results and to evaluate them and their credibility, both from the search engine, results page and also through clicking into those sites and then using your back button, to go back to your results or whatever. Of course, some people are just going to want to, get a quick summarized answer of something. But I think that there's still going to be this like period of time where we struggle with like, where's that information coming from in the first place? Where's that, how's that summary being generated? Where's it pulling that information from? And can I trust it? Because the AI thing has talked about citations and footnotes and how we, gauge credibility with the information that we receive from it. So something's going to have to come to a head there. I mean, we've seen, Bard have some, or not Bard. What's Microsoft's
Copilot?
tool? Yeah, yeah, Copilot. Yeah, some sort of their search engine deal. Like it actually
Yeah, they
like
have
lists some like
Bing.
citations.
Yeah, they have some
Yeah,
integration with Bing. Yeah.
yeah, which is helpful. But then again, it still turns the idea of like we have these like listings to go down and to like audit those different entries in there to say like, is this source a good place to get the my information from? Most cases, like we're not going to know because AI is a bit of a black box like that, and we have to probably be okay with that. If someone just needs a quick answer, they don't care about the source, or whatever, then yeah, that sort of summative or that summative, output is going to be helpful. But if you are like working in research or you're trying to like get to the bottom of something and and you need original findings in there, well, you're gonna have to go a little deeper. Like I just don't think that that a AI-ified Google page is gonna be able to help us with that stuff still. I know that there are products working on this stuff, to do great literary reviews for you on the fly, and to be able to like list all those sources for you so that you can write them or cite them in your own prose. That's pretty cool. Like I can see that as like streamlining the research process and not necessarily confining the quality of the content that you create with it. Um, but it's an aid, right? We have to use it that way. And it's not so much replacing our jobs as much as it's hopefully taking some of the little, automatic things that we have to, bear in mind from time to time. And it alleviates us of some of those things so that we can, do our work better as opposed to letting AI do that work for us. Even if Copilot spits something into VS Code for you, you better, it just means we're all becoming code reviewers in a sense, right? Because it's just making its best prediction that this is the function you want for this particular situation based on its knowledge and understanding of what's on Stack Overflow or something. And so at the end, we still are responsible for that quality. And as we saw it, see, what was it? Was it in the HTML survey results or something like that? That was code quality, or that pressure on code quality is downward, these days because, oh, actually, I think Copilot, I think GitHub published that report actually, which is even more fascinating, right? Because that's Microsoft, and that's the Copilot originated there. So it's kind of interesting to know that their own tool is putting downward pressure on code quality as a whole. Just means we have to be better at our jobs to know when that code isn't good and to fix it with our human knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very difficult
I
situation.
remember that, and I think my first question was, how do you even determine code quality? Because because I would probably look at something and someone else would look at something, and like we'd probably have very differing views in terms of how good that code is.
Yes.
Something purely as simple as if it was like kind of a bit of a more object oriented slant, I'd probably think it's garbage, whereas like they would probably think the same if it had a more functional like slant, so like even just in terms of paradigms. But yeah, I remember that specific thing you're mentioning now, and like that was my first question, is like how, and I think it ended up like the metric they actually even ended up using was not very useful and super vague, and I think it was something like in terms of basically came down to the amount of lines of code or something. I can't even remember. But I also think like there's something to be said in terms of some things just can't be condensed. Some things can't just be summarized, because if that was the case, like there would be no reason to read a book. You just read the foreword, or you'd maybe just read the back description. And I think the point here being, and this is something I'm actually very excited about, I definitely saw a big rise in terms of tech publishing. Like over the last year, there's just been like, even if you look at something like O'Reilly, they've been tapering downwards, and they've been pushing more in terms of like their Safari platform, in terms of like just like ongoing content and videos and articles. And just over the last 2 years or year, you've just seen this massive upshot in terms of books just coming out again. And I think part of that is just actually understanding that this is there's two types of things, and the one is like being able to summarize something. If you just want an answer, you just want that Stack Overflow thing. Yeah. You just want like, how do I make the background red? But then there's the other element of, to get a real good sense of something, you have to like iteratively like go over it and come back to it and take another lens. Like, let's look at it from this direction. Okay, cool. Let's look at it from this direction. Okay, let's look at this aspect. You kind of like look at the same thing over and over and over through like chapters in a book or whatever from different dimensions. And you can't just summarize it, because then, you know, it's like an over abstraction, you know,
absolutely.
You almost like you leave out so much nuance that at the end of the day, you're not actually giving anything of value. Yeah, like it's the same, like some concepts as well. If you think about like something like quantum physics, like you can't just summarize that in a single page, because you're glossing over so much nuance and things that you need to really understand fundamentally before you move on to the next stuff. So like I'm not concerned about that. If anything, I think the move to books and stuff now, because I think like the area where AI is really cannibalizing a lot of stuff is in the realm of like these little short things like articles or little videos or whatever. And I think the more long form things like books and so forth are becoming more of value, because now it's less about how do I do the thing or like looking at something through a little vignette, but instead like curating it and, you know, like being like at a broad level, let's understand this thing from a broad level instead of just, because I think that's where AI really struggles. I think AI is really good when you're working at a really small scope and you want to be like, cool, is it like how would I center a div? Or whatever, okay, you know.
Many ways.
Yeah, but so now if you take a step back and you're like, should I use Flexbox or should I use Grid? Now all of a sudden, like the decision tree in terms of things to consider gets so wide that you can't approach it in something like a large language model. Now you have to be like, cool, let's look at a case study. Let's look at this other case study. Let's talk about what are some, you know, there's so many ways you have to approach this thing. And I think that's where kind of AI the wheels start coming off. So I'm really excited to kind of, especially as someone who really likes reading a lot. I see Schalk has CSS Definitive Edition by Eric Meyer back there as well. Yeah. So like this is very encouraging for me though. So I don't know if there's anything you guys want to touch on before we move over to the CSS-Tricks stuff.
Oh, let's go for it.
Let's do it. So okay. So I'm just gonna go straight into it. I'm just gonna like be on the nose here. So you know, I think as someone who sees CSS-Tricks as like such a big part of my own journey, from someone who like, you know, like I literally like I was still doing like the whole thing with the JavaScript, the hover state thing, where you swap out an image of a button and you show another button if you hover over it. Like nice. I was still doing that while I was reading CSS-Tricks daily, you know. So that's how far back my journey along with CSS-Tricks goes. And you know, so like when like the whole thing happened, like I'll leave it up to you to kind of give as much context as you want, but effectively what it came down to is like CSS-Tricks isn't actively being maintained at the moment. For whatever reason, I'll leave it up to you to kind of disclose like what you see as the reason, but it's basically dead. So I think for me there's like that's something that really saddens me. It's something that like almost like it feels like something I need to grieve, you know. It's kind of like something that I lost that has been such a big part of my daily routine and my journey in terms of growing in this world of web. I can't imagine how it has to feel if you were actually right there in it and now it's gone. Like if I just think about like how much sadness it brings to me as just someone who tangentially engaged with it. Yeah. So I'd be curious. So there's first and foremost, there's like the mental health stuff around kind of just like the implication of, hey, I need to find a new job and so forth. But then there's also like this thing that was like kind of part of something that you built and now it's just not there. Like,
Yeah.
what is that like?
Yeah. Well, just like you, I was a fan of CSS-Tricks before I ever worked there, you know? Yeah, I mean, CSS-Tricks has been around since, I believe, Independence Day, you know, July 4th of 2007 was Chris's first, like, little two paragraph post, you know, of something.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, I probably started reading in 2007, that's when I was, you know, a web designer for a large insurance company, making static Photoshop mock-ups of things, you know, and handing them off to two web developers who did something magical with them and, you know, made them show up on the web. And, you know, at that time I was starting to realize, I'm like, hey, there's a disconnect between these two jobs, you know, like why can't I build these things at the same time? You know, like why am I doing the extra step of designing these things in a Photoshop file when I could just build these things in the browser or something? Like, can't there be both? And that's where, you know, I started really, you know, looking into front end stuff. And of course, CSS Tricks was really one of the only things doing, you know, that like live, you know, I'm gonna blog learn here, you know, and just anything that like Chris was learning, he's just blogging it. And I mean, the industry needed that. You know, we needed someone to be like, I'm just learning this stuff. Hey, check out this cool thing. I don't care if it's if you know if it's a good practice or not. Isn't it cool that it does this? That to me was always so cool, and Chris always seemed like the kind of guy you could just sit down and have a beer with, you know, and that just, you know, always, you know, was a refreshing thing to me. It just wasn't, he talked more like me, you know, and not like, I don't know, the people I was handing off those static designs to. And that was, you know, a revelatory thing for me to be able to say, oh, you know, like I could write about these things too, which I did, and that's what got me into blogging originally. Um, and geez, the yeah, you know, as a fan of CSS Tricks, you know, it just made my day when Chris you know, offered me to, you know, to jump on board. I was, you know, just a dude, you know, hanging out, you know, doing small WordPress sites where, you know, have a handful of like clients, and I just happened to blog a lot about the things that I was learning and the things that I was doing in my career, because I had recently gone freelance for the first time. This was back 2011 or so. And gosh, I was so scared. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was, you know, keeping up with CSS Tricks and a list apart and Smashing Magazine, all these things to, you know, feel like I had community behind me and a support network to like guide me through, you know, how to, you know, thrive in this area. Um, and as you know, anytime you break out on your own, that's a bit of a scary thing too. You know, you forfeit, you know, a guaranteed salary on something, and you go in and put, you rest on your laurels, you know, to like find work and to, you know, earn paychecks. So that was very scary for me. I lost a lot of sleep over it. But blogging helped me out because it made me realize this is a learning experience. I am going, you know, it's going to take me a little while to build this thing up. And I need to give myself as much, you know, slack and like understanding and grace as possible, just to make sure that I'm, you know, getting through it. And my wife was really the biggest cheerleader in my life. Without her, I wouldn't be freelancing today. You know, I've been doing it since 2011, uninterrupted, except for that 1 year at, you know, DigitalOcean. And for those who don't know, I was probably about like February or January or March or something, 2021. DigitalOcean purchased CSS Tricks from Chris. Awesome, right? You know, and that's a very smart move. I'm surprised that more big companies don't make a marketing play like that, because there's so many rich content sites out there on this stuff, and why try to build it back up from scratch, right? If these people are like willing to like sell the properties. CSS Tricks was a great one, and I know it made a lot of people sad, you know, to see it go corporate. But I decided to go with it. You know, I had a very healthy freelance, workload, and I was making plenty of money, and I was in a good rhythm, and yeah, pretty good stuff. I was, you know, burning out slowly, not realizing it. But at the same time, like I knew that this is a good thing, in general, because DigitalOcean has a good track record with content. Their blog,
Mm.
is famous on its own,
Yeah,
and
I
and
just want to also
oh yeah,
mention, like add to that. Yeah, like
yeah,
I also like I think like I from my general sense is that I think there isn't any ill will to Chris for that, because
yeah.
at
Oh,
the
none.
time, like DigitalOcean was like the key, like content, educational content as marketing player. Like
Yes.
they, like because I know I was doing a lot of technical writing for a company called Ritza at that point.
Ah, yeah.
I actually did a lot of stuff for, I don't know if you know them, Gareth, um, and so forth.
Oh man.
Um, yeah, so they're based in the Netherlands. They do a lot of like white label, like education content
Oh yeah.
as marketing stuff. So I've actually done a lot of stuff for Replit. For them, I wrote Replit's GraphQL tutorial,
Oh, cool.
um, and like so, and I think like internally at the company, like kind of DigitalOcean was kind of revered as kind of like they really have this content as marketing game down. So I think
Okay.
at that point, like I don't think anyone thought, like, I think if anything, people thought like now CSS-Tricks is just gonna go to the next level.
That's what I thought.
So
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
I
same here
mean,
as well. Yeah.
who knew
But
that in exactly 1 year, like I'd wake up one morning and it was the day after Valentine's Day. It was like February 15th. How crappy to to have it be associated with such a happy day, that like, I wake up one morning, it's like, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like ready. I flip open. I'm like, oh, just check in on Slack real quick. Wait, I can't log into Slack. Oh gosh, Slack must be down. Let me check my email. Hey, my email is not fetching. What the heck? Oh wait, I have a personal email. It's from the CEO. What? Ah, I've been laid off, and it's like, and as someone who'd never been laid off before, it was a real shock, like I didn't know that that's how things happened. Call me, naive or what, but like I've just lucked out for many years and just always, like had a stable job and stable income. So it was quite a shock for me. And of course, my first reaction was like, what did I do wrong? Like, oh my gosh, I must have really messed up. But yet, gosh, I was, praised for, lots of things. Like, things were like not perfect because it was a transitional year in lots of ways, but we were still very healthy and we were publishing content. People were still excited about it. But you wake up one day and it's gone. And it wasn't the job part that really bugged me. It's just that, again, like you, I was a fan of CSS-Tricks before I was ever a part of it. And for me, it became a passion project in lots of ways because it wasn't the main primary like income driver for me while I was freelancing. I had bigger clients, so to speak, and I wasn't full time at CSS-Tricks. It was just something I really loved doing, and it was it like filled me up amongst other work that really drained me. So it felt like a good balance and a good thing to have in my life. So when someone kind of ripped that out from under me, I felt really, robbed, and I felt, like, oh shoot, gosh, what jerks, you just took something away from me, is what it felt like. I never worried about the job part. And again, that's part of me being naive and never, having lost a job before. I was like, oh, I'll find another job soon, which I did. I'll get to that. That's great. But at the time, it was very. At first, I just didn't worry about it. I actually wanted to tell Marcia, my wife, right away. And but I had to resist not waking her up out of bed to be like, hey, guess what? I got fired. Like I was actually like kind of excited to like tell her about it in a way, as if I was like earning my like badge here. And so I waited for her to wake up. She came downstairs, fixed herself some coffee. She's like, good morning. And I'm like, hey, good morning. Guess what? And she's like, what? And I'm like, hey, it's all good. It's all good. Like I just want you to like know, but like I have to kind of process this. And she was great knowing that I needed to process it. Um, but yeah, like I imagine that my experience isn't much different than what other people would have felt going through it. Whenever you lose something you love, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna rip your heart to shreds a little bit. But I really held a lot of resentment towards DigitalOcean for taking something that they didn't have to buy and then shutting it down for reasons that felt more business driven than actual community driven, because this was a decision at the very top level, right? And they didn't just fire me, they fired the entire community division responsible for all the content on DigitalOcean. So when you say that DigitalOcean really had the content marketing thing down, they killed the entire program right there. So it wasn't just CSS-Tricks. They didn't take like an X-Acto knife and carve out who was being fired. They just amputated the whole arm. And threw their investment in CSS-Tricks out the window. Quite literally, the baby was out with the bathwater. And being the only person resourced to CSS-Tricks at that time, that killed the site. I hate thinking that like the site was dependent on me in that way, but when you're the only person running it, you kind of are the single point of failure there. So you take me out of the picture, like, how like you always say, like, oh, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to make sure that there's a backup plan. But there was no backup plan. They threw me under a bus, killed me. And, and then I know I'm taking the metaphor way too far.
They purchased the bus and they drove you over with your own bus.
Yeah, they totally did. Yeah. But I learned very quickly that my boss was fired, my boss's boss was fired, my boss's boss's boss was fired, and everybody was like fired. So so I didn't take it personally at all. I was like, oh, this is clearly just a business decision. They didn't even think about me when they did this. They just did a big, massive bureaucratic, swipe right on the whole division. So that's fine, but it also meant like, crap, I have to kind of rediscover things. And what I learned in that process, whether it's right or wrong or healthy or not, that, I think CSS-Tricks, I made it too big a part of my life. I really, really cared about that site a lot. And it was, the thing that I woke up to do in the morning. It got me out of bed. And I put a little too many emotional eggs in that one basket, and so having it pulled away from me and having loved it, yeah, I was very resentful. And I had to go through, several stages of grief, to deal with this. And, because it's partly my livelihood, it's partly a passion project, it's my hobby, it's my well-being, it's how I provide for my family. It's all these things, it's too interconnected into all areas of my life. And so losing that just really felt like I was losing a big part of myself, as silly as that might sound, but it that's exactly the way it felt. It felt like a little part of me had been stolen away, and that they were messing with me. It was like, hey, Jeff loved this thing. We're gonna take it away from him. We're gonna pay millions of dollars for it, and then just shut it down. It's like, gosh, you can do that? Like, how crazy is that? That like big business can do that. That we have these companies that can just swallow other little companies, and then just on a whim, just like shut it down. I know that angered a lot of people. It only angered me insofar as that they took something away from me personally. I didn't think, like, I still think DigitalOcean's an okay company, and they have a good hosting product. Droplets are still, like an awesome feature, and they've been improving their platform ever since. But they just happen to make some crappy, industry tech decisions, just like a lot of other companies did too, right? I mean, Microsoft laying off their like AI ethics team, around that same time. And then, so I took a few days to process that. I did not say anything right away. I didn't go write a blog post about it. I didn't, go like crying, over to like, my mom and blah, blah, blah. No, it was just like, I need to like sit down and process this, because this means I have to change some parts of my life, and that took some investigation, deep, as far as like what's important to me. And in the process, I realized, crap, I don't really know who I am. I like my identity had been put so much into CSS-Tricks, and for what it's worth, I never saw myself as like a face of CSS-Tricks, like that was always Chris, like I love being the person behind the curtain and like supporting the whole thing. I like being a part of that team and being in collaborating. I never, saw it as like a, I'm some big deal, in this thing. No, I was just always a lucky person to get to work with like such a great community of like authors and to, just work together to put great content out on the web. So like it didn't feel like like CSS-Tricks was my identity, like being some sort of like known entity in the web space or anything, because I still think like most people don't even know who the heck I am. But the idea is that hey, um, I lost this thing. It was important to me, and I put a lot of stock into it. Now, what's important to me without it? And that is a really big can of worms to open up, because you start asking yourself questions. Do I even like development? Like, that's what I had to ask myself. And at the end of the day, I had to say, no, I don't really like development. And I still don't really like development. I had to be really honest with myself. I had to say, dude, Geoff, you scored dumb luck into this industry that you never chose. And you developed a successful career in it with no purpose or deliberate intention behind it. And yet you formed an identity around it. Now it's gone and you have nothing to fall back on it. It's like, is this still what you really want to do? And my mind had to be honest and say, no, it's not. It's kind of not. So I'm still going through that. That's still, a process that I'm dealing with. Knowing that I've fallen out of love with web development in general is a shocking thing for me. But it's also been very eye-opening in that I've discovered that I have way broader interests than I ever knew. And they're way more fulfilling to me than web development. But I still enjoy web development as a hobby. I got into it as a hobby, and maybe that's exactly the role it needs to play in my life, right? It doesn't have to be center stage. It can be the thing that I'm just interested in, just like music, just like, baseball or anything else. I really do like baseball. I'm a big Giants fan. So, go Giants. And I just feel like, I didn't, there was so much of myself that I needed to learn. And, full disclosure here, my dad was a licensed clinical social worker. So he's a therapist, and like, I didn't know how to deal with this stuff, and like, hey, you're a son of a social worker or like a family therapist and you don't know how to do this stuff. Well, yeah, but then again, my parents divorced too. So it's not like his profession saved him either, and so all this, builds up in me, and I'm just, it forces me to rethink everything, to hit, to do a hard refresh, clear cache, and figure out what the heck I'm doing in life. And what I've discovered is I really do like the writing thing. Copywriting really, content really was the thing that was that I loved in the first place. And it took understanding myself more of that. And let me tell you about that. I had to go so far back to realize this. I had to realize my mom's dad, so my maternal grandfather, was a copywriter. And I didn't even realize this. He had his own agency in San Francisco with offices around the world, in London and Paris and everywhere. And he came up with those, like, he was an original madman, from the 50s. You have Don Draper. He was Don Draper in San Francisco. Like, mind blowing, right? Here I am watching Mad Men, and I didn't even know that runs in my blood. And I was like, oh my gosh, he gave me, his first typewriter. I still have it, this green Remington. It's gorgeous. But that's really where my roots are. And then in addition to that, on the other side of the family, my both grandfathers, the copywriter who owned an agency, so he started a business. My paternal grandfather, ran an insurance company, and then my two uncles, one, got his PhD and opened up a bovine veterinary practice. The other became really wealthy. He was an NFL player for a while, but then ended up starting his own company, and now he's like really cool. Yeah, so I was like, oh my gosh, this entrepreneurial kind of spirit and content, these are in my blood. And no wonder I don't like working for other people, like in an office, because I have this independent spirit. I have this little flair that doesn't like to take instruction or just have my. I love taking instruction. Don't hear that, anybody. No, it's more like I just don't like having one thing to do. I like many things. My interests are super broad, and yet I've been confining them for so long and limiting them to the extent that I was diminishing myself and my own interest in holding those things down to the extent that I blew up. Like once I lost CSS-Tricks, it made me blow up. And like, not in an anger. It's not like I got violent or anything, but no, my existential crises hit, and at first I'm like, oh, I'm just going through a midlife crisis because, I'm in my 40s, that has to be what this is, right? No, it just opened up the whole can of worms that made me question everything. And because of that, it opened up, that like, oh, I have all these inadequacies, right? Like my dad and brother, master's degree people. I don't have my master's degree. Maybe I should go get that. So I did, like while I was unemployed, I still had freelance work. I never gave up freelance work, even when I was at DigitalOcean. So again, I was never worried about the like income and the employment part. I was like, this will come, this will be fine. And lo and behold, within 3 days, Vitaly reaches out and says, hey, we should work together now that you're free. And I'm like, wow, maybe we should, so I'm grateful to Vitaly because I mean, who doesn't know and love him? Such a warm, caring guy. He's the real deal. I admired that guy a lot and what he does and the fact that he's, led Smashing Magazine, which has been around since 2006, 1 year before CSS-Tricks. So you think about it, that's quite a mainstay of the web. That's pretty incredible for an online publication in this day and age. So pretty incredible. But I say that, because I had to like strip myself back and realize, what is it that I really love doing? What is it that I don't like about my life too? And what is in my nature? And how can I be true to myself? And that has been a painful process that ever since that day that I was laid off, I'm still working on. I mean, I think everyone should go to counseling. I don't think counseling is for the broken. I think it's for everybody. Just like I think marriage counseling is something you should regularly do because it's just like taking your car in the shop and getting a tune-up. That's all it is. And I'm still in that process. I'm still dealing with it, and I'm still not sure what my next big step is. I do love what I do at Smashing Magazine. What I can maybe make you feel good about. I know you said you were super sad, just about losing CSS-Tricks. Well, it's back running again. It's publishing again. I'm working over there. I am there.
Oh, really?
But on a contract basis, and I'm there temporarily. The job offer was there to come back. One day where this all blew up in my face is the day that DigitalOcean reposted my. Well, actually, should back up a little further. Chris publishes this really cool post that says where I'm at with the whole CSS-Tricks thing.
I remember that.
Yes,
and
yes.
I have to say I really appreciated his honesty and openness about it as well. Yeah.
And it was all real, like these are all conversations, that like, I'd heard whispers of and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, this is very real. And it's very much, like how Chris processes things. And it was very cool to like, see that, that inner working in his brain too. And so his post, I guess, lit a lot of fire underneath DigitalOcean, of course, because, with their new CEO, who's more developer focused, he's like, okay, we can't have this egg on our face, right? We weren't good stewards of CSS-Tricks, and he tweeted as much and all that. But then he also announced that they had my job reopened. And not only, at first I was like, why didn't they reach out to me personally? Like why not? Because when you read the job description, I'm like, isn't that just what I was doing? It's like, isn't that me? And like, is there anyone better to do this? Because than the person that was doing it, but maybe they want fresh blood. Maybe I'm not the person. Maybe I have too much baggage, like there's always, a reason for, for something that like, maybe you're just not privy to, but it kind of felt personal at the same time, that there wasn't, this like heads up that this thing is coming out. And then also that they had doubled the salary, and you're like, what? Like, really? Same job? Like, are you kidding me? I mean, I took a huge pay cut to like go over there too, and I was like, what? Like you could have, I mean, I knew they could have afforded me, before, but now they really just like proved it to me. Um, and what I decided to do, like I wrote a blog post about it, of course, because I was getting pings, but in Discord, Slack, email, just, phone calls, texts and whatnot. People, hey, your job's open again. And I'm like, and it's really hard to ignore, and even though people are being kind and letting me know about it, it's, it's picking at the scab, so to speak. And it was, doing me a lot of harm. And I took it very hard. If I'm being very honest, I did have a bit of a mental health episode, I guess I'll call it, and it wasn't immediately after that job position, but about a week later, yeah, it sunk in, and then I was like, I'm not okay with this. And
it's almost like seeing your ex with a new boyfriend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And on top of that, I started questioning what was wrong with me. What's still wrong with me? Like, why wouldn't you want to work with me again? And I start doubting everything that I'm doing. And of course, the whole snowball routine, right? So that's where I was at. And then I knew at that point that I was not okay. And it was the first time in my life I ever just told someone, in this case, my wife, I said, I'm not safe. I'm just not safe. And that was the hardest thing for me to admit. I told her I trusted her what to do with me and to make decisions for me. So she took me to, the hospital. And at the time I was dealing with big back pain. That was chronic pain also, like affects your mental health. And I had a 20-year back problem. I'd already had one surgery on it. And I needed another one. So I just was a hot mess, and I just couldn't, I have this nagging pain. I have this, inner Aunt Kathy yelling at me, and I have, and I see my ex with someone else, right? It just felt like a really shitty time in life. And,
and he earns double the salary that you used to earn. Yeah.
and he's twice the man you are, Geoff. Yeah, totally. That was exactly the way I felt, and still feel in some ways. But no, I did put out a blog post about it. DigitalOcean did reach out that same day, actually, and we had good conversations about it, and they did extend an offer. I politely declined for personal reasons, like I mean, you can probably imagine what those are, but I still love CSS-Tricks. It's still a baby, and I still want to see that thing go. And I saw just how disappointed everyone else was too about it. I share that same feeling. So I asked them if they were open to the idea of bringing me back on temporarily for a very specific amount of time to go in, help get the engine running again, and then kind of hand it off, the way that I wasn't able to hand it off before. And that helped me out a lot. That's what I'm doing now. I'm only 2 weeks into this, so you'll see a few things on CSS-Tricks. I've been trying to publish things.
I'm literally looking at it now. Details content, sure. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly almanac stuff right now because, I mean, what a terrible year to not write about CSS, right? I mean, we
Tell
gave
me about it. Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. It's like the year for CSS. Yeah. I know.
So I feel like I'm playing catch up. I'm like, oh guys, and have you heard about this and this and this? Oh my gosh, we've missed it all, and so I'm just having a lot of fun in the almanac right now because those are not they don't go out in the RSS feed, so people aren't really aware that things are being published right now. I did a guide on CSS length units in there that I'm really proud of, and so that's the kind of stuff I'm working on right now, getting some more evergreenish stuff up so that we can be referential again, help people learn, those core, best practices and understand the context of the types of technologies that we're working with. And then we can start writing about these things and using that documentation, to support it. So it's going to be a process, right? Because you can't just, flip the switch back on and say, hey, CSS-Tricks is back. It's running again.
Yes.
I mean, not only did we miss so much in the past year,
Yeah.
but we broke so many people's trust. And trust is earned, right? Like if CSS-Tricks dies after this effort, I mean, it's not because I feel like I failed. I just feel like it's because trust couldn't be won back, and that's gonna have to be okay. I should say Chris is also helping with some of this too. It's not just me. So there is some collaboration here, and DigitalOcean, I have to say, is making a good faith effort here, and I'd like to think that if I can extend a little grace to them and find pathways in to get this thing going and re-gift CSS-Tricks back to the community in a meaningful way, and let's give it a shot. But it's going to take everybody doing this, not just me. And I mean, even if Chris were to come back to it full time, it's still a trust game. So there's no guarantees here. I don't think that that I'm solving any problem here. I'm just giving it the best shot that I think we can possibly give it.
It's exciting regardless. Because I think the more places there are where these things are being talked about, the better. You also don't want, and I'm pretty sure the team at Smashing also don't want Smashing to be the only game in town.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, it is a little weird to be at both publications at once, but I also again just have to turn to Vitaly and just say, just is illustrative of the type of guy he is. He sees the bigger picture in the community, that the community is better with both CSS-Tricks and Smashing Magazine in it. And we know that because we saw what happened in the year that CSS-Tricks wasn't there. So the fact that, I see that, Smashing is contributing to this effort just as much as anyone else. So it's a very cool thing to see people rally around this in small circles yet still, because it's still, happening. But it is exciting to see. I'm right there with you.
I'm just glad that Parsky's article is no longer the top.
I know, right?
But Shem, to his credit, the author, I know there's this running joke where if you go in his bio on CSS-Tricks, it says, "I'm sorry, Chris."
Yes, that is Neil Fenimore. Yeah. Neil's a good friend of mine. I still talk with him often. And the very moment I shared that post with him, I was like, "Hey, Neil, your passkeys is still very popular. Check it out a year later." Still, he took that and then he updated his bio, sent me a screenshot, said, "Oh, I'm going to share this with Chris," and then Chris laughed. It's just a funny thing. I'm glad. Even though I love that Passkeys article, I'm glad it's not on the front page anymore too.
I'm pretty sure he's glad too.
Yeah.
Because also now he's in a position where this is now his career-defining work.
Yeah.
It's like this is what he's going to be known for the rest
last
of his life.
CSS-Tricks post
Yeah,
ever.
exactly. His claim to fame. But yeah, I think as we start closing this off, I think a good place to conclude things is maybe for you to share a bit more in terms of kind of where you are right now and kind of what you're doing. So you spoke about the CSS-Tricks stuff maybe picking up again, but I'm curious about the Smashing Magazine stuff, where's that heading, how much are you involved there? I actually don't know to what degree you're involved, and even just your personal stuff, so the basics dev stuff you shared as well. So maybe I think to maybe close things off, you can just share a bit about the stuff you're currently involved with, and also where people can find you and kind of learn more about you or support you and so
thank
forth.
you. Oh yeah, cool. Well, currently, I mean, you pretty much hit the big bases, right? There's my contract work, which I always maintain about 5 to 10 clients at any given time, and that's cool. And I definitely include Smashing Magazine in that bunch. They're a client just like others, but do what I did over at CSS-Tricks over there. I'm a lead editor and focused on the front end stuff. And but the real smart stuff is what the senior editors do. No, I don't. They all do everyone does a fantastic job over there, but it's a remarkably small team, which I did not know. It's funny, but having been familiar with Smashing for so long, I always thought that they were a bigger company. It's really not. It's a very small team that's bootstrapping it just like anyone else is. So, just know that, it's still a very independent, small company, still trying to like make it, and they're doing a good job, but it's still, a fight. And trends across the industry are just, down in general, when it comes to advertising and traffic and everything else. So support Smashing, folks. Yeah, absolutely. Not that they're desperate for it, but but it's always good to support the publications that we love. And yeah, I see the CSS-Tricks thing as just another side thing that that I have a finite amount of time for. If it turns into something else, I'm open-minded. I don't have any script for the future. I still teach, so I'll be teaching 4 classes this upcoming term. And I teach at 3 different schools, so it's all remote. And it's fun. I love teaching. I consider teaching to be my retirement plan in lots of ways, right? Because it's something that you can sunset and do, right? You can take the sum of all of your knowledge and then just kind of ride out in the sunset with that, just mentor the next generation in, which I think is a really cool job to do. And plus it feeds my work perfectly, right? Like I read all this great stuff at CSS-Tricks and Smashing Magazine, then I turn right back around and I teach it to people. So it feels very symbiotic that way. Yeah, so my immediate future is 6 months long. I'm with CSS-Tricks for just a little bit of time, and then I don't know what's going to happen after that. I'll be in the middle of a semester teaching. I'll have a handful of clients, and I'll have a new degree, and I'll be wondering what the heck I'm going to do with all that stuff. So, hey, if anyone wants to work with me, let me know. No, but that's I did release the basics.dev specifically because it marries my love of like all things front end, and the information of it with teaching this stuff and writing all of it, right? And then putting it out there and like just hoping that this can give just more access to people to enter the web development field, because again, I just think that the entry points have vanished. They're just gone. You can sign up for a boot camp, Code Academy or something. They assume some stuff already, so if you're not already steeped in technology, no, you're probably not going to be the right person for that audience. It's very accessible, but not the silver bullet, for beginners, like beginning. So that's what the basics is all about. I don't see it, being like a full-time job at any point in time. But it did take me 3 years to put together, of like, constant motivation again from my wife, like, you've got to do this. Like, it's just a natural thing. You got to do it. I'm like, all right, and she really, cheerled me the whole way, which I just can't thank her enough for. Because otherwise I just wouldn't do this stuff, right? So yeah, you can find me at the basics. You can find me on my own personal blog at geoffgraham.me. You can also find me publishing over at Smashing Magazine, and as of last week, CSS-Tricks again, for at least a finite amount of time. And who knows what's going to happen after that 6 months. So that's where I am at.
Amazing. That's good stuff, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
This was really, really, really good. It reminded me of a video I watched yesterday of Joe Scott, where the title of the video was, "Why Should We Learn Anything Anymore?" And it talked about the whole AI thing and da-da-da-da-da. But what it came down to is all the things we have today and will have in the future is because of the innate curiosity of people. And that's why we have to keep learning things. because we're curious. And if we stop learning, our curiosity will go away and we'll end up, like you said, in like Wall-E, those folks just sitting in the chairs and being fed advertising and media all the time. So it's important for us to stay curious and keep learning stuff. And the other thing that video reminded me was a quote from Alice in Wonderland that my wife reminded me about, where the Mad Hatter says to Alice, "There's something different about you. Something's missing." And he said, "It's your muchness. You should never lose your muchness." And I think that's the thing. Like with AI and all of this stuff, we shouldn't forget our curiosity and we shouldn't lose our muchness, because that's what makes the difference. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And also you had to like tug at my heartstrings here is yeah, my daughter's name is Alice and we took that from like Alice in Wonderland and stuff. So yeah, that's very cool. That's a really, really awesome insight into it. Oh, I hadn't really, dug into that specific passage, but I remember it. Lewis Carroll, just has a really interesting way with words too.
I think this is the first time you're not quoting from some sitcom. Like, Schalk has this habit of like, there's generally some type of sitcom where he's like some scene or something that he draws like some wisdom from.
We can pull
but I think we'll make an exception. Right? We'll make an exception this time around.
I know. Does anyone have a quick Seinfeld reference? Quick. No.
Never fails. Never fails.
Yeah, there you go.
Never fails. Never.
Yeah, shame. I just feel sorry for Schalk who has to edit all of this. This was amazing, but like, I'm sorry.
It's going to be awesome to listen to all of this again.
That's where yeah, like that's the much of the muchness, that's where curiosity gets you. Like editing like a 3-hour podcast.
You'll have so much fun with that.
Yeah, but this was great. Thanks so much,
This was a lot
Geoff.
of fun.
Like,
oh gosh, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. But I'll definitely chat to you about the article stuff.
Please do. And hey, you all like we're taking article submissions at CSS-Tricks again. Like I love it. If you submitted stuff, you're both excellent writers. And and geez, like anyone else listening too. I mean, geez, everyone has a voice on the web. The more perspectives we have, the better. Our industry can easily be an echo chamber of the same voices being shared in the same newsletters all the time. We want more diversity. We want more variety. My perspective isn't going to be, the best. We need more perspectives. So please get in touch. That's what it's for.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's as good a place as any to end it off. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks, everyone.